All right, CNT140 phone cable lab. We have our switch configured. We have the router configured. We did the general router config, and then we did the specific phone config. So now we should be able to set up our devices in the network, the analog phone ATA, the IP phone, and the soft phone, so that we can actually register these phones and get them talking in the network. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over here on the ATA. I'm going to click on this guy, and I'm going to go to the config tab, and I need to plug in the address of my router, 192.168.1.1. That way it knows to talk to that router to get its config, phone number, and all that jazz. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to give it a second or two to get it, talking to the router. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover my mouse over the ATA, and I'm going to start looking for, did it pick up an IP, did it pick up a phone number, that sort of thing. Okay. So I'm going to hold my mouse over there, and I see it has an IP, excellent. And down there at the bottom, or actually off to the left, I see line number 1001. So it actually has a phone number now. I'm going to try to hover my mouse over the analog phone and see if it has one as well. Excellent, it does, line number 1001. I'm then going to open the phone, and I'm going to look over here in the corner and see if I have a phone number. And I do, 1001. Excellent. This phone is ready to rock and roll. I'm going to close it just for simplicity, but you could leave it open if you wanted to. I'm going to do a similar thing on the IP phone. This one I'm going to open the phone, and it needs a power cord plugged into it. Okay, so I'm going to drag my power cord up to the phone, plug it in. Now, while it's booting up, in real life we'd be plugging this phone into a switch that's able to do power over Ethernet, actually power the phone from the switch. These switches in Cisco packet tracer don't have that, so we need the little power adapter. I'm now going to click on the GUI tab, and you'll notice that it's actually working on getting an IP and trying to register itself. So I'm going to let that do its thing for a minute or two. I will come back to it and check on its progress. I'm going to let it do its thing. It sometimes can take a minute for it to register, so I'm going to jump down here to the soft phone, get it going, then I'll come back and visit both of these. So on my PC, I'm going to open the desktop, the IP config, and it's set for static. I'm going to do DHCP so it picks up an IP from my router, and it does. Excellent. Once it does that, I'm going to scroll over here to the IP communicator, open it up, and see if it picks up its phone number, and it does, 1003 right there. So my soft phone is configured and good to go. And if I were to hold over there, I would see it has an IP, and down on the bottom left, I see line number 1003. Excellent. Now that the IP phone has had a minute or two to work, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll hold the mouse over, and I'll see it has an IP. Down on the bottom left, I see line number 1002. I'm going to open it back up, and I'm going to go to the GUI, and now you'll see it has registered. It has its phone number, and it's even showing, hey, I'm ready to go. Okay, so all three phones are now connected in, configured, and ready to be used. All right, so let's use them. I'm going to try my best to get all three on the screen here for you. So I'm going to pull up the analog. I'm going to kind of scroll it to the left over here. I'm going to pull up the IP phone, kind of put him in the middle. And I'm going to pull up my PC communicator, and I'm going to open him down here. And I got to somehow get all three of these on here. All right, I at least have those two. Okay, I should try to get my... There he is. Oh, there he is. There we go. Okay, good. What we're going to do is we're going to do a call or two between these things. So starting with my analog phone, I will dial... I will need to... Yeah, I got there. Okay. So I will take the phone off the handset, and I'm going to dial 1003 to try to get my soft phone. And it does. And actually, if you have headphones on, you hear all the ringing and everything. On my soft phone, I can do answer here, and it'll pick it up. And now I have a phone call connected between these two. And I can actually use these little buttons here. These send little tones across. Sometimes you can hear those going back and forth. There we go. It's like little piano notes, and I can send signals back and forth. Now I'm going to close this handset here, and that hangs up those two. I'm now going to dial the IP phone. So I'm going to go here, 1002. I'm going to take the phone off. It dials my IP phone here. I'll take it off the hook. And again, that shows a connection between those two. I can do little tones across. I'm sending little data packets or voices, if you will. Hang those two up. All right. Now that I have those working, I'm going to, kind of running out of space here, I'm going to look at what happens before a phone call and during a phone call. Okay, so I'm going to go to my router and do show ePhone, and I'm going to make a phone call and look at show ePhone again. So let me go back to my router here. I'm going to do show ePhone. Actually, you see messages here about the phones registering. It shows you those as phones are connecting and registering. All right, I'm going to do show ePhone. This literally shows all three phones, ePhone 1, ePhone 2, ePhone 3. Next to them, it shows the MAC address and shows you things like, is it off hook or is it not? So as I look down through these, I see these are registered. I see that here's the MAC address of each one individually. And things like, let me just make this a little wider here for you. Off hook is set as 0, meaning these are on hook. They're not ringing or anything like that. So it's showing all three register, but they're just sitting idle. They even say that here. They even say the word idle for you. Okay, we're going to try to dial a phone number, get a phone call working, and come back to this and look at what happens when there's a phone call active. So I'm going to dial from my analog over to my soft phone. So 1003, dial, I'll answer. And now that phone call is active, I will go back to my router and do a show ePhone. And what I'll see now is, I'm going to make this a little bit larger. What I'll see now while this phone call is active, it actually shows ePhone 1, this is an active line. And there is actually connected, active on blah channel. And it even shows you the codec of that it's using for sending this signal, G729. And down here, ePhone 2 is idle, but ePhone 3 is connected. So this actually shows you that they're connected and data among them, which is kind of slick. And if I hang these back up again and issue, here we go, issue the show ePhone, you'll see that they went back idle again. Idle, 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 right there. Okay? That's what I want you to see while these phone calls are active. All right. Last thing we need to do is gather proof of our lab. So we're going to submit the router config and our packet tracer file. So on your router, do your show run, spacebar a couple times. I want to see all that phone config. So we're going to scroll up here. I'm going to grab all that. I'll do copy. I'll open a text file. I'll make mine plain text. Paste that in, and I will save this guy to my desktop with, I think I have you using a name like Brown phone config, something like that. Phone config. Let me double check here before I get too far ahead of myself. Yeah, phone router config. That's what we're doing. Phone router config. Phone router config. There we go. Save that to my desktop. So now I have the phone config, and as you look at that, I see the DHCP scope, I see the IP address, but the important part for me is I want to see this phone config down here. That can only be done, the phones are only going to work if you have that config. The other thing was we want to save our packet tracer file. So I'm going to close all my little extra windows for right now. There we go. Close that guy. And I will do a save here if you didn't do it already. Do a file, save as, Brown Phone Lab, Brown Phone Cable Lab kind of thing. Since I did, it's already, do I want to replace it? Yeah, I'll replace it. So the only thing left is to submit your files, and you have three things you're going to submit for me. The picture or video from your phone cable construction, the router config from this lab right here, and then the packet tracer file. And submit all those into your phone cable Dropbox on D2L.